See if Doug is somewhere around there. Doug, are you somewhere waiting for us? If not, that's okay. We will be all right. But for the rest of you, we are live. Episode 12.
Has there been any more action on the Netflix adaptation of Unsound from Boom? I'm asking on his Discord.
Oh, okay, cool.
He'll get back whenever he sees that I added him, and whatever, it may take 3 or 4 days.
Oh, that's fine.
Last Son's Mech Cadets, well, we know that that's out. So Last Son's Unsound, we know Berserker is moving forward with 2 or 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
And Something is Killing. So those are the current things supposedly in production that we haven't heard of.
We're just waiting for that to actually come out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's through, is that Netflix or Amazon?
These were all supposedly Netflix, but by the time they come out, they may be with, whomever. Okay, I'm ready to go whenever you are.
All right, man.
What did you read?
Everything But Fence.
Okay, did you Hunt?
Oh, from last week? Yeah, I read Hunt.
Did you read Once Upon a Time?
I read that.
So you read Coda, Damn Them All,
yes,
House of Slaughter, and Mech Cadets.
I even have Firefly.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that one's on you.
Yeah, that one's on me. Yeah.
Hey, Doug.
I have got them all.
I say it like I'm shouting across the room at him.
Yeah,
I don't know why it is. Sorry, Doug.
Doug! Hey! What's up?
It's like, no, he's right here.
Yeah, he's right
over there.
Yeah. It's fine. He'll be all right. Or not. Yeah. I will just dip into Firefly for like a couple seconds. Because it was
that's fine.
Because it was a good book. So.
And that's a new one, right? The Fall Guys?
Yeah, it's a new series, new miniseries.
Okay. New mini.
I forget how many issues it is, but it's a new miniseries.
I'll predict 4 to 6. Terry Moore, hey.
It is 6 issues. I just saw it. It's on FOC. Hello, Terry and Doug.
And we're not going to do FOC or
no, we're not
because we're going to talk Last Sons.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
Exactly. All right, so let's get the ball rolling in 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, welcome back to Boom Addiction. This is episode 12 of season 4. I am one of your hosts, Chris Partner. With me, as always, is Mr. Ed Moore. Ed, how are you, sir?
I am pretty good because this means that it is episode 97.
Yes, we are slowly on the roll.
As we count down to 100. That's HUNERT. 100.
100?
Yeah. 100.
Mm-hmm. We will get there. Yep, pretty looking forward to that. Hey, if you've been paying attention, you too can own these copies of Vicious Circle. It's episode 1 and 2. It's issues 1 and 2. They were sent to us by Boom Studios. We thank them very much for that. And so all you have to do, it's just an easy, super simple contest. All you have to do is just put a comment after we get these episodes posted on YouTube. Sorry, folks who are in the chat. Whoop.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
Yes, that's all right. But so you have to do it after the show is over. So if you're in the chat right now, these posts do not count. But yeah, come over to show on YouTube, put a comment on any of these episodes leading up to episode 100, which is in about 3 or 4 weeks, or 3 or 4 episodes, we'll say. And hopefully those will be in weeks as well. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
That remains to be seen.
Yep. So you know how my schedule is. So, but yeah, and then we'll give away these books on episode 100. So get your comments in sooner than later. So, but we've got a lot to talk about. No news or anything, nothing like really big. It's mainly just stuff, upcoming books and things like that. A couple things have probably sold out and things like that. I've been, uh, my brain has been in work mode, so I've really not paid too much. I'm trying to look over my other screen and see if I actually see anything that was any news, anything big, other than the Keanu Reeves Berserker universe set to expand through consumer products, but that's not really anything huge for us. Just different products and stuff like that. I'm more interested in new comics and a TV show, maybe, or animated series and a movie.
Well,
Those kind of things.
House of Slaughter 16 will get a second printing, so there'll be a variant there. Hunt of
Yeah.
Skinwalker 1 sold out, so there'll be a second printing, a variant
Yep.
there.
Yep. So we got a couple sellouts, so that's good. So we're going to start this episode out before we jump into new release reviews. We're going to talk about a mini series that came out back into 2015, first of 2016, called Last Sons of America. It's the first, or not first. It's a 4-issue mini series. The first issue was released on November 11th, 2015, and last issue was released on April 6th of 2016. So took about 6 months to get it out there. An issue every other month. Well, there's one second issue was out in December, end of December, and then third was middle of February. Um,
Probably every 6 weeks.
Something like that, yeah. So trying to think back to what how shipping schedules and stuff were back then. I think they were for the most part hitting the mark on most of their stuff, but yeah, there were a couple of books and things like that that took a we'll say a little bit longer than your traditional 30 days to get an issue out. But either way, we're going to talk about that mini series, dive back into sort of retro reviews and things like that, talk about some older books that Boom has put out over the years. So we're look forward to doing more of those in coming episodes of the show. Do you want to run through what the synopsis is of
Sure.
the miniseries?
Where did that synopsis come from?
This actually came from I think it came from League Comic Geeks.
Comic Geeks.
I think
Okay,
that's where I
because
pulled it
it's
from.
yeah, it's a pretty good one. All right. Well, first, this is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Matthew Dow Smith. Was colored by Doug Garbark and lettered by Jim Campbell. When a biological terrorist attack makes it impossible for anyone in America to conceive, those looking to start a family must rely on adopting children from around the world. Brothers Jackie and Julian are adoption agents based in Nicaragua, securing deals with families willing to give their children up. The duo usually conduct their adoptions through legal means, but it becomes more difficult when child kidnapping becomes the norm. Desperate and running out of options, Jackie snatches a young runaway, unaware that he's grabbed the daughter of a local crime lord. In over their heads and on the run, the two brothers fall into the mystery at the root of their world's status quo, a mystery much darker than they might be able to bear.
Yep, that's a pretty good synopsis of what happens in this in
Hmm.
this
Yeah,
book.
yeah,
One thing, much like a lot of books, I don't say a lot, a handful of books that Boom had been doing at the time as well as now. This was picked up by Netflix back in 2019 for a movie or an adaptation of some kind with Peter Dinklage, Matt Reeves. That's who it was. It was Matt Reeves was going to be directing it and everything. No, it all comes back to my brain. I was like, there was something up with the director, and I forgot what it was. Yeah, he left Netflix and has moved on to to Batman and other and other things. So, but there's not been much news about it since 2019, since it got announced. So, hopefully, it's still being mulled around and things like that because I do think this would be a great property to do some kind of live action adaptation. It leans toward that. I mean, there's
oh yeah.
nothing alien about this or super sci-fi or anything like that. It's pretty uh the practical effects are pretty much any other network television series that you can do for a pretty decent budget. So I guess we can go ahead and dive into, it's been a while since we had a retro review, so I'm trying to figure out how the best way to do this because we don't want to go through issue by issue, but we kind of can. I mean, the issues again is 4 issues, so it's kind of broken down pretty good. The first issue really is just us getting to know the brothers and sort of what their job is. The issue opens up with them talking to a family in Nicaragua uh, who has 7 children, and so part of, like the synopsis said, part of the U.S. or the whole U.S. due to this virus, or Agent Pink is what they call it, uh, has sterilized families. And so what has happened now is children, in third world countries, especially in poor regions, stuff like that, have basically become currency. So families, well-to-do families and stuff like that in the U.S. are trying to find children, just so that they can have children, and are willing to pay a price, giving certain, characteristics of the child and stuff like that will make the value of them, more for the family and everything like that. So what Julian and Jackie are doing is going to these families, and at least presenting these options to them. Hey, we've got a family who's willing to pay, a lot of money for your children. Now, it's in our sort of day and age, it's really hard to sort of put that together. Like how you could just openly just go up to somebody and say, "Hey, look, would you like to sell your kids?" But it is as hard for them to do as it sounds like it would be. So I mean, there's a lot of realism that comes into the story, and these, Jackie and Julian definitely struggle with with their circumstance, not just with the children, but also trying to make a living and surviving, and that kind of thing. So, and keeping up with the more unscrupulous people without becoming those same people.
Right.
And then Jackie does the unspeakable, because Julian tells me, we're not kidnapping children. And what Jackie ends up doing is taking a child off the street who actually, they come to discover, uh, he didn't he sort of kidnapped her, but didn't kidnap her.
Yeah.
She came looking for him, and would have willingly gone with him, but he did not know that at the time because she spoke Spanish and he didn't. Julian's the one who's bilingual, so he missed out on what she was trying to explain to him. Now, the only English that she does speak is in Star Wars lines.
Right.
So that was kind of entertaining, she she'd have gone willingly with him. But he ends up drugging her with sort of this, I forgot what the tab was called, but it was basically to knock her out, some sort of sedative. And so it knocks her out for about 12 hours. And so he tries to, you know, uh, do things behind Julian's back, to get her out of the country. And then things just kind of go crazy as we get into the next issue when Julian explains to him, "Oh, look, the the local crime lord that we're trying to like stay low and not, that they know who he is, and they know, and he knows them. They've worked with him in the past. Um, his men come looking for his daughter, and obviously, it's pretty easy to see that the girl that Jackie ends up uh, sedating and is upstairs asleep, waiting for his friend from the agency to show up to help him get her to the U.S. That ends up being the crime lord's daughter. So, and then sort of violence and insanity ensues. Um, but what you end up finding out is she has learned uh, some more unscrupulous. If you can think the crime lord has done even more unscrupulous things than drugs and violence in his town, he has. And so she knows that, he knows that she knows that, and if she sort of escapes and then starts to tell other people and authorities and stuff like that, he's a little worried that that's going to come down on him, maybe because the town seems to want to defend him. Even the law enforcement that are in his pocket want to defend him to a certain point. We kind of learn a little more about that as as we get further along into the story. So kind of, and that's really about the first two issues or so. But kind of up to this point, what's your opinion of or thoughts about what's going on with these guys?
Um, Somehow, and maybe it was because almost 10 years ago I did read this, and so something in my mind jogged. But by the end of the first, about halfway through the second issue, I knew what the drug lord's deal was.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that was, like I say, pre-experience, or I really don't think there was anything about the writing that gave it away that blatantly.
Oh
But
no, it was
so
pretty
yeah,
close to the vest. Yeah.
um, you didn't explain what's unique about Jackie and Julian. I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
Other than the fact that they're twins and one is a little person and the other one's not.
They were the last natural born Americans.
Oh, even that. Yeah, I did forget
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, they were, after the virus hit, they were the last two
Yeah.
children born to Americans. So that
Yeah.
kind of, eh, anything else aside, I would think the government would want to grab these two up and sequester them and study
Right.
them and whatever,
Yeah.
but yeah, we come to find out that they were the last two well, not natural born necessarily, but just the last two born
Yeah.
to Americans. Um, on in the first issue on page 15, the bottom half of that
Mhm.
page, um, the scene of the street with the buildings and the wires and the street being full of people and vehicles, and that panel just absolutely knocked me out when I flipped to it.
Mm.
It just, I was like, wow, it just, it's colored,
Oh, yeah, yeah, I see it now.
dirty,
Mhm.
it's drawn, um not the crispest. It's not intended to be. Everything is there. You can tell separate buildings. You can tell windows. But it's just, it, to me. It just really brought home what this place, and we don't exactly know the city. We know it's in the country of Nicaragua.
Yeah.
But it just, I think this set the scene for me more than anything else that they did or said,
Yeah.
was just this one image here. Um, as far as the story, it was, it was not, it was not okay. Um, it didn't necessarily move me as much as other stories uh, have,
Yeah.
either good or bad, or it was. I think if I were to see this on the small screen, I would probably be much more entertained by it than I was reading it.
Mm, okay.
Seeing these characters actually come to life, seeing the setting, a third world country several years from now after this, I mean, this very well could happen today for
Yeah.
the way that the comic is set. There's nothing
Mhm.
that differentiates it from, basically when you were reading it, as far as the year and
Mhm.
the world. Um, of course, what sets it apart is the setting, what has
Yeah.
happened to the U.S. and what they have decided to do. I find it amusing that it puts me in mind of 20s and 30s gangster attitude here in the U.S. The gangsters here were the bad guy,
Mhm.
and they knew and they accepted that. But as the bad guy, there were things that they would not do
Right. Yeah.
initially. Now, ultimately, they got to doing it,
Yeah.
but there were distinct lines of badness that they would not
Hmm.
cross. Um, Here, I'm sorry, these are the bad guys
Oh yeah.
going to another country and offering people who can't really say no
Yeah.
money for their children. I mean, that's a bad guy. But now we
Right.
won't steal the children because it's okay if we pay a fair
If we
price for
pay
the
you,
children.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
if
Yeah.
you buy the children, that's
Well,
okay.
in
But we
the
won't just take them off the street who have nobody or nothing, that
right.
they would benefit from it.
Yeah.
Taking a child perhaps from their parents, from their family, that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, no, they are going to
Yeah.
probably be
Yeah.
hurt more
right.
than just a child that is trying to live off the streets that you send to a family in
Yeah.
America but no, we can't do it that way. We have
Right. Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
wow, it's okay.
the reasoning. And so the thing I found interesting was the fact that it's almost like I need a explainer for why Jackie and Julian decided to even get into this business, because they both seem extreme, like Julian especially seems
Mhm.
very conflicted about what they're doing,
Yep.
regardless of legality, and he doesn't feel right doing it, but that's his job. That's what he's doing. So, but he knew what he was getting into when he got into it. So then it becomes like, well, why did you even do it to begin with? And where Jackie is more, yeah, he's kind of like what you said. He's like, no, this is the wrong way to do it. Just taking kids off the street, because that's kidnapping, but paying someone justifies it. So he's kind of built his own sort of rules,
Mhm.
and as long as he goes by his rules, everything's okay. And the moment he doesn't go by his rules, that he does against, and Julian's is the older one. That's the funny thing I
Mhm.
like about this is it that Jackie explains this later on in the story, is that he's the younger brother by like 7 minutes,
Right.
but at the same time, everyone assumes he's the older brother because
Just
he's constantly having to help Julian for things that Julian just can't physically do.
I was gonna say, I think they think he's the older brother because he's bigger.
Oh, that too.
It's
Yeah.
it's that bias that we
Yeah.
assume that bigger means older.
And he admits that Julian is the one who always keeps them out of trouble,
Mhm.
as kids and stuff like that. Like he knew what to do and what not to do. So maybe it was Julian that got them into this, thinking, "Oh, well, we can make this. We can be better." Who
Right,
knows?
yeah. Yeah, we can, yeah.
But yeah, Jackie ends up, sort of in a moment of weakness, goes against what Julian says, and then now look where they are. So, but yeah, you're right. Even if all of that, you sort of take that out of context or put that back into context, it's still what they're doing is making them the bad guys,
Right. There's
regardless.
bad guys, of course, by moral definition.
Right. Yeah.
The world has been set up in such a way that, well, morally, well, but actually, no, they're not the bad guys, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, but morally they are, and they're dealing with bad guys in this crime boss in
Yeah.
Nicaragua. There's a whole organization that they work for, based in the U.S. that does this around the world.
Yeah.
Okay, they have teams throughout the world buying children. Well, not throughout the world. I'm sure they're focusing on third world countries,
Yeah. Yeah.
or excuse me, whatever the new, more liberal phrase is for what I grew
Mhm.
up saying was a third world country.
Yeah.
I don't know what the new word is, but everywhere. So it's like, and all the other countries that they are working in understand. It's not that they're having to do anything uh, under the table.
Right. Yeah.
The whole world, of course, knows the situation in the
Yeah.
U.S. as far as the sterility virus,
Hmm.
and they accept, probably via kickback. the fact that the US is buying their children and
Yeah.
shipping them, and who knows? Ultimately, maybe that will benefit these other countries because if their residents go to the US, grow up, and are um, given all the opportunities that American children are, and then decide to take that back to the country
Right.
that they're from, the education, the money, the
Mhm.
power and prestige that maybe they have gotten. Ultimately, maybe those other countries will benefit in
Yeah.
the long run, or maybe, 2
Oh,
or
yeah,
3
the level of
generations later.
politics
So,
that could be put that we don't get. I mean, there's
and,
that's the
yeah,
interesting thing we were talking about before, before we started recording, where we weren't exactly sure how the live adaptation would be, but we definitely could see a multi-episode
oh yeah,
series over just doing a movie because there's so much sort of backstory that could be told, even not in super detail, but enough. There's enough um, stuff that we don't get in the miniseries that you could dive and really sort of beef
yeah,
up that story. That would be really, really interesting. So,
yeah.
uh,
There's plenty of room beyond this for character development. The the woman that they get to help them at the end, that is
yeah,
what she's part of their organization, but then it turns out that she's not, that she's actually law enforcement,
she's
right?
FBI. Yeah,
Is that what it was? Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, let's get a little bit about her story.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let's get a little bit about the story of the crime boss and why he got to the point that we see him here.
Oh, I mean, because he even explains a little bit about him and his brother, and
Hmm.
sort of that whole situation too, and sort of it mirrors Jackie and Julian to a degree. Um, so it's yeah, there's tons of those moments that we get that like so Johnson gives us just a little bit of each character that he could have spent a whole issue on
Right. Yeah.
providing that kind of backstory. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Um, the I do remember when this book first came out, like because obviously it came out in monthly format. It was like I spent time with this first issue. Like it was a struggle for me, but just for the moral just a moral struggle reading through this, knowing that these characters like I read stupid superhero books at this point, back in 2013 or 20 whatever year it was, 2015.
15.
Like I've spent, a good part of 30 plus years reading a lot of superhero stuff and everything, or hard sci-fi and fantasy adventure and stuff like that. So these kind of quote unquote real world kind of things, it's not really a thing that I read a ton of. And so, yeah, like we talked about a second ago, sort of the uh just the idea of an organization being above board, sending people, across, anywhere in the world just to buy up children
Right.
legally, just like, oh, it was just like
Yep.
it was a tough thing to kind of go through. But you also got to think at that point, let's see, that was 8 years
8 years
ago, so
ago.
my kids were, early teens,
Yeah.
mid-teens or
I
whatever,
was gonna
so
say what, a third less of what they are
of
now,
what they are
roughly?
now, yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, yeah, so definitely a bit of a struggle. Now the remaining 2 issues kinda go into because we get a situation where it becomes a on the run kind of situation for Jackie and the crime lord's daughter. Julian ends up getting captured,
mhm,
sort of having to deal with his situation. He explains to the cops everything that the girl has told him, that her father has done, the secret. And I kind of want to keep that,
but
spoiler, you
nobody
know,
believes him.
but
See,
nobody believes him. Yeah.
and that was something else. There's a, let's see, it's unspoken, um, specifically, but you can tell that this crime lord has tremendous pull
Oh
in
yeah.
this city in
Mhm.
Nicaragua, so much so that because he allows it, this American company is in not just his city, but is in the country buying the children. I
Yeah.
mean, every step of the way, the okay basically comes from this crime lord. I mean,
Yeah.
he is that powerful. The city, the crime lord has done some things that is not common knowledge.
Mhm.
And so when that word gets out, the city still protects him because he is the economic uh, um, bell
He's the
cow
economic stability.
for for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's job owes back to him in some way, if
Yeah.
not just the amount of money that he brings in with his illicit activities.
Yeah.
And even so much so that he has government contacts that he has used to allow this uh, other company to come in to ply their trade here.
Mhm.
So he could have said no, and it's interesting in a way that he didn't say no, but he didn't, which tells me that there must be some kind of money to be made when they come to your country wanting to buy your children.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that they are paying the families for the children,
Yeah.
there must be other uh, we'll call them licensing fees to be
Yeah.
able to operate
Yeah.
there. There has to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and that's the thing, there's so much of that, yeah, that's not explained, that is
Yeah.
could be, a wealth of information. I do like the fact that much later into the 4th issue, we get sort of a flashback of because 4th issue is the climax of everything that's happening, and again, I would, we are talking about a book that's, 7 or 8 years old, but at the same time, I don't really like to spoil certain things. The kicker with this, of what the secret is, I think it's a good thing to have that be revealed to you as you read it. Um, but you don't really get to know that until the 3rd issue when Julian tells the cops, and the cops sort of scoff at him like you're out of your mind. And but it is after Julian is taken by the crime boss and everything, and we get that sort of flashback, to earlier in the day when the cops start to talk about what he has told them. And they're like, do you believe, what he said and everything? And, they're kind of like, no. But then one of the cops is like, or the sheriff is like, you know, someone he knows their kid was kidnapped,
Yeah. They're
or
like,
or
"Well,
something like that. And he's like, and for me to not know if if the crime lord was involved with that, that's where he's like, he gets a little backbone,
yeah."
and wants to, maybe we need to take a look into this.
You
So
know, if this and this and this, then that's
yeah,
again,
there's a
that's the
lot of
line.
yeah,
There's a line, and it's like,
yeah,
well, on this side of the line, illegal is okay.
yeah,
Now, on the other side of the line, illegal is too much. And
yeah,
so if it,
exactly.
yeah,
And it all depends on how it hits you, both professionally and personally. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a mini series that I think, um, I think it's a solid mini series as far as story. It's not super complex. So it's not one of those things that you've got to reread it 10 times to sort of get the hidden meanings and stuff. It's a pretty up in your face kind of story. But like you said, a lot of the reveal of it and sort of the climax and everything you really don't see until actually it's starting to unfold, which is good. I like the fact that it's not telegraphed. um it had me, there were a lot of things that happened in the 4th issue that I was surprised at when it happened, and I enjoy reading a book that's sort of a real world kind of story that I am surprised at, how things play out. So yeah, I was kind of glad to pull this one out of the out of the boxes and reread. So anything else you want to add to this before we close up?
I don't think so. It was much like yourself. This the trending more towards the real world is not typically the kind of books that I pull to read.
Yeah.
Um, also, like you, most of my reading has been and continues to be superhero. Now, having done that for so many years, I find that I am a little bit more willing to try other things,
Mhm.
and more real world seeming kind of stuff seems to be one of the few larger places to go in comic books if you don't go superheroes. You
Right.
go, something, the ironic world, or the pulp world, or
Mhm.
all of these things that are like just degrees off from the real life that I
Yeah.
live as it is. And
Yeah.
so as I'm getting older, I'm finding myself, at least interested, maybe reading as well, more of that than I have in the past. And
Yeah.
so at the time, 8 years ago, I wasn't necessarily in that phase. So this didn't strike me all that deeply then.
Yeah.
Now, as 8 years older, but more importantly, in a place where I have kids, but I don't have kids. They're out
Oh, yeah, your
doing their
kids are
own
much
thing.
older, yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's a different world than I'm in now, reading this about people selling their kids. So
Yeah.
it hits differently. I think if I picked this up fresh now, I would have a very different impression. A lot of these things that I was saying out loud are the things I was thinking now. I don't
Mhm.
really think they were things that I thought 8 years ago when I read this.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah,
um,
it's definitely one of those sort of evergreen stories that can be
oh
picked
yeah,
up
for sure.
at any point, over the years and read new and will give you a different perspective depending on when you first read it. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, what stage of life you're in. I mean, one t I have said that probably the most profound change as a human being you will ever go through is if you take it seriously and you become a parent.
Yeah.
That is just very close to that is when the nest gets emptied.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's a very, and it's not in the same way, but,
Mhm.
now, um, you have 2 adults,
Yeah.
hopefully, or
Yeah.
however many adults, that are doing their thing, much like you are, that you probably are closer to than anyone else in your
Yeah.
sphere. Um, and so you kind of have an inside track, but now you're watching from the outside a little bit more closely than you
Yeah.
do anybody else. But there is that separation. It's not, when they were in school. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
so it's, yeah. So anyways,
Well,
I'll get off
in
my soapbox.
I'll use Walking Dead as an example as far as my life goes. I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, have been since the early days of when I started reading it. And my son is, not exact same age as Carl was at the time of the book and everything like that, but close. And so it was one of those things. There were situations that Rick and would find himself into, and Carl would find himself into. Now, again, the sort of fantastical story or whatever of zombies and that kind of thing. But at the core of it, Kirkman made a character piece
Mhm.
story. It wasn't always about the zombies or whatever. It's about the people and the characters and a father and son and all this other stuff. So there were many situations while the situation was sort of fantastical or whatever. The core of it would always make me kind of like think, okay, if ever in a situation that
Yep.
these decisions would need to be made, what do you do? And those kind of things. So yeah, there were several times where there would be heart to heart conversations with Carl and Rick, and I would have to, it would I got that sort of father son connection thing, and so it was so reading that book meant a lot to me back then in certain situations and stuff like that. So yeah, I totally get that with, it's all about the timing, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So All right, so that's Last Sons of America, the first four issues. Or I keep saying the first four issues. Everything we read now is so much more than four issues.
The only
Uh,
4 issues.
it's the only four issues. If you do get a chance to read the series, let us know. They do have trade paperbacks out there, single issues, obviously, that you can find. You can find. I'm pretty sure you can find it digitally on like Comixology or something like that. So but if you do get a chance to read it here in the next couple of weeks, or if you've never read it before, let us know because I'd be real curious to kind of just to get your sort of feedback and what you thought of the book and stuff like that. So if you do that and send us a message, whatever, let us know if it's okay to talk about it here on the show because we will definitely. I'd love to do sort of those kind of feedback. We talk about old books and stuff like that, get some feedback and everything from folks who are reading it new. So. All right, so let's dive into we've got 2 weeks worth of books to talk about, so we'll kind of hit these. We'll go in depth, but we're not going to spend 30 minutes on the hunt for Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, we might. Who knows? We'll find out. What do you want to start out with?
The Hunt for Skinwalker,
All right, let's
issue
go.
number 1.
Let's go. Buckle up.
Oh, this is a topic that has interested me for a very, very long time. I'm very much a fan of this whole abnormal, paranormal. Actually, the place probably that I learned the most about Skinwalker Ranch was watching the Ancient Aliens show
Oh wow, yeah,
on History or wherever it
yeah.
is. Not that I am necessarily a believer of ancient aliens, but I do recognize that there is some shit that they bring up that cannot be explained by what we know now.
It's kind of
You
like
know,
the Mexican mummified aliens here
I
in the last couple
well,
days.
I mean, yeah, really, that was, you probably the what always grabs my attention are architectural things.
Mhm.
Uh, prehistoric buildings and cities and things like that with massive rocks that even now couldn't be moved. And obviously they weren't there
Yeah,
because you can see that, so it's like, well, how did they, I have no idea.
right, yeah,
Uh, do I believe it was a no, I don't really think that that's what it was,
right.
but I don't know what it was.
But working
How
with
did
engineers, that sort of situation, it's fascinating because every once in a while, somebody will get into weird conversations like that. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it occupies us for like half an hour. Like
sure, yeah.
we're just like we all kind of like get on the computer and we all kind so it's in the engineering world, yeah, that's those kind of things still come up in small talk and everything like that.
Yep.
And
You
oh,
know
it's
full well what
fascinating.
the limits are,
Oh, yeah,
so you're
yeah.
like, "Oh, no, that exceeds the limits."
Oh,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
no idea about that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so Skinwalker Ranch, the what is it? It's Hunt for Skinwalker is
Yeah.
the title of the book, and this comic is a sequential art adaptation of a prose book that was released in 2003
Mhm.
about an actual real life place in Utah. It's in the uh, Uinta Basin, Uinta Basin area of Utah. And I didn't write the names of the tribes. Let's see if this article.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
it's the no. This doesn't say there. Are three primary tribes that all seem to have territory in this region of Utah, and it all comes together. Um, and I'm not going to throw out any names because I know that I'll be wrong. But the article that I'm looking at doesn't name them quickly here.
It's the Navajo, the Hopi, and the Utes?
Ute,
Utes? Sorry.
Utes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So there we go. And if there's a television series on right now called The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch.
Mhm.
It just finished up its fifth season. And the current owner, um, yeah, I didn't write down his name either, but it's here, Brandon Fugel. He is permitting true scientific studies on the property. And as they are doing different tests and they're bringing in different experts and people knowledgeable about different things, you get a lot of the um, Indian or the what in Canada they call them the First Peoples um, view on what is going on and what
Hmm.
has been going on, and you find out that this particular part of the country has been um, not really in dispute, but it has had issues with issues between those three tribes that you mentioned for
Hmm.
as long as the oral history has record of those three tribes living in this area. So there has been stuff and weird stuff going on here for as long as man knows,
Yeah.
basically. Now, this book, this story is there have been four owners of the property. One owner owned it for 60 years.
Hmm.
Um, Never really heard too much about whether they ran into anything freaky. Um, I would have to suspect with the level of freakiness they did, but they just
Oh
kept it to
yeah.
themselves. They just didn't tell
Right.
anybody anything. Um,
They're gonna think we're crazy.
yeah, really. Now the second couple, this is interesting to me. They're listed as Terry and Gwen Sherman
Hmm.
on official records. This book throws out the name of Tom and Ellen Gorman.
Hmm.
I have no idea why the name change.
Yeah.
The comic says that this name, the Gormans, were the owners, but official records say it was Terry and Gwen Sherman. So
Yeah.
um, now they told people about the freaky stuff that they encountered. And it got so freaky that they owned the property for about 2 years and sold it.
Yeah.
Sold it to somebody who, upon hearing of the freaky stuff that was going on there, became interested in the property,
Mhm.
and so they wanted to sell, he wanted to buy, and
Yeah.
they hooked up pretty quickly. Um,
Because they're wanting to get out.
yeah, really. Now, his name was Bigelow, and he owned it for about 15 years.
Mhm.
Now, while he was there, he did allow some official studies. Two interesting things about his time owning. One is that he did not release any information that was found from the studies that he gave the okay for.
Hmm.
And the other thing is that those studies were, to some extent, and that's another question, but to some extent, they were backed by the American government.
Oh, okay.
But because information is kind of sketchy, we don't know what they did, what they found out, or anything. Well, at, at whatever point, no, about 20 years, I'm sorry, not 15, 20 years he owned it. And then he decided to sell it. I don't know why. To this gentleman named Fugel, did I say? Yeah, Brandon Fugel,
Mhm.
who bought it in 2016 and is the current owner. And he has given the okay for this Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch TV show.
Yeah.
One of the principals on that has done work for NASA, for the US government. And while he was helping with these studies on Skinwalker Ranch, was also the lead and principal scientist for a sketchily documented UFO study group
Mm.
by the military that now has um, it became defunded for some reason, but then turns out that what happened is that the name was changed to something else, and personnel were changed, but the goal was still the same, and that is to study, um, what do they call them? Unidentified aerial phenomena,
Right.
UAPs.
Yeah. Yeah. UAPs. Yeah.
And so, but while he was working at Skinwalker, he was also working on government UAP studies, and it was kind of contentious there for a couple episodes of the show when everybody on the show found out he hadn't told them he was working for this other organization,
Huh.
and he can't say anything about that because he signed,
Yeah.
what do you call it, confidentiality.
Indie. The
Yeah,
NDAs. Yeah.
yeah, India. So he can't talk about it, but yeah. So, but this story, this book covers the first issue covers the initial weirdness that Tom and Ellen Gorman encountered up until, I believe, the time that they sold the property.
Hmm.
Uh, Let me open the book here. I believe that it got to that point. If not, it will. Um, yeah, no, not yet. No,
Yeah. Not. Yeah.
this is still about that couple, and I believe they have a single child, but somebody's brother or sister lives close because they had a cousin there with them
Yeah.
at one point
Yeah.
also. So they must be from this area, relatively close by, buying this. But they have primarily what we see, is told to us is that they have some UFO encounters.
Hmm.
That's primarily what happened in this issue. Now there are um, there's some residual evidence left by UFO encounters on top of the visual that we see. Couple things that they talk about here I hadn't heard about, watching The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. Some of the things I had heard about, they've talked about with this couple. Some things in here that they didn't. Enough so that it makes me actually want to get the prose book and read it and
Oh. Okay.
see.
Yeah.
There's enough difference there. But couple, they buy a ranch because they want to live the dream, of owning, doing their own thing, owning a ranch,
Hmm.
running livestock, animals, gardens, the whole hippie living off the land thing. And some stuff starts happening, and there's a couple instances where something happens to the wife when she's by herself, happens to the husband when he's by themselves, and they just poo poo it. And turns out they never tell each other.
Yeah.
So the volume of weirdness isn't realized until a little bit later on when they both together start experiencing things, and then, oh, these other things come up that
Yep.
each has experienced individually, and so it compounds the nature of the disturbances that they see.
Yeah.
And by disturbance I just mean the difference from their normal life, disturbance. I probably most people would find what happens rather disturbing.
Oh yeah.
Um,
For sure.
I I have wanted stuff like this to happen to me for years, and I've never seen or heard or anything. Nothing.
I'm not real certain that your wife would be thrilled about
I
that.
I used to be big into photography,
Yeah.
and just to tempt fate, I would explicitly leave my camera at home when I went somewhere because
Yeah.
obviously, if you've ever watched UFO shows, people never seem to have cameras to
Oh
record.
no. No.
So I figured, well, as long as I have my camera, it's not gonna happen, so I'll
Right. Yeah.
leave it, that way they know that I don't have a
You
camera, and they it
you were trying to invite it to
I
happen.
I was baiting. I was actively
Come
bait, and
on.
yeah, it
I
just didn't
won't take your picture.
it didn't work, man. Nothing ever happened to me. Um, and so that's basically where we are. This couple, they have some weird things happen. There's a particular weirdness that the story ends on with. Um,
Terry is correct. She is she's
you
still
are correct,
listening, and
Chris.
so
I
she
do
is
not want the weirdness. Oh,
she
that's
is
fair. That's
that's
fair.
I didn't know if you were still listening or not, Terry, but
My
just
whole point
speaking
is that
for you.
I want something to happen so that I can take an accurate record because so
Right.
many people don't
Because
seem to be
nobody
able
else
to.
does.
No, I it's like that picture's mine. I did that. That's
That
all I want to be able to do.
that reminds me of a thing. Not to really derail things. Something happened to my son at work. He works in in a big box retail place, we'll just call it. And a lot of folks like to just because they're told not to stop anybody if they steal something, just to let the people go. And so he works at a place that this happened the other night, and he was working. And so he was quite frustrated that he couldn't do anything, but he knew he couldn't do anything. And so one of the older folks who worked there went and took a visual account of the vehicle that these people were getting into. I'm like, don't any of you have your phones with you? Like seriously?
I guess not.
so,
Nobody
so it's
has a smartphone. It's
so it's talking about just the accurateness of your reporting. I'm like, yeah, it's
Yep,
like okay,
yep.
maybe not.
It's one of those big box
Maybe in the
stores where
moment you just don't think about it.
everybody is told they have to leave their phone in the locker,
Right.
so they never have
Maybe
it
that's
with them,
it. Yeah.
never have it on them. It's yeah. I, um. So that I mean, it's just there's nothing really yet to set this book apart from any number of
Yeah.
other
Right.
weird UFO books. There's even a series comes to mind that I'm waiting to get the collected edition from about a former UFO abductee that becomes president of the United States.
Oh,
Do
interesting.
you remember that series, Chris? Was that called Saucer Country, maybe?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yes.
I forgot that
By
was an old Vertigo book. Yeah.
by a big name writer now.
Yeah.
He's huge now. He wasn't quite as big then.
Oh, man, I
I
totally
think his
forgot about
first name was
Sauce.
Paul something, but yeah. So,
Yeah. I forgot about that.
um, so it the thing that is most interesting about Skinwalker is the volume
Yeah.
in this locale, and
Yeah.
this one issue really can't.
Oh,
You
yeah,
have
yeah.
no idea about that. If this is the first that you have ever heard
Yeah.
reading this issue, it just seems like any other. We just got done with a series called Blue Book by
Yeah.
Mr. Tynion.
Yeah.
There's nothing really significantly that sets it apart from that. Well, except the big footprint in this issue. That was kind of freaky. But so I'll be interested to see if they get into the Bigelow era
Yeah.
and are able to tell us anything that he did, because his studies were much more scientific, recording different radiations and
Mhm.
running tests to uh, evoke responses and things like that,
Yeah.
are some of the things that Bigelow did. So those are much more interesting a type of thing in my mind than, well, I saw something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
much more interesting is, well, I took my big boom box out to the field and I turned
Right.
it up as loud as I could, and I
Yeah.
saw something. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
oh, okay, well then, So, 4 issues. I'll be interested to see what kind of detail, particularly with the fact that I have some cursory knowledge of
Yeah. Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch, and see how much it meshes or anything like that. So
No, and I
I'll be
think
looking
that's
forward
good
to it.
that you do have that inside sort of, or at least you know more about it than I do, which is great. Me going into this issue, I was kind of curious on how much they'd be able to cover because having talked to you about it, I kind of knew that there was a lot that goes on with this, and exactly how much can you cover in a 4-issue miniseries? I don't know.
Right.
And this particular issue, I mean, yeah, it tries to cover some stuff, but it's not anything. Then I felt like we kind of jumped from moment to moment. Like here's a weird thing, and then calm, then a weird thing, then
Yeah,
calm, then a weird
almost like
thing.
you're going down a list. This
Yeah,
happened,
yeah,
and then this happened,
yeah.
and you're like, "Well, how long is it? A day? Is it a
Right,
year
yeah,
in between? What?"
yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, it was. I mean, for me, it's fine. I mean, it's not anything. This issue wasn't anything great or anything. And much like you said, I'd be kind of more curious about reading the novel to kind of get more information, that way. I used to
right.
be a big UFO guy.
I didn't go into the creatives here. I'm sorry
Oh
about that,
yeah.
folks. It was written by the um, graphic adaptation.
Mhm.
Again, now this is based on a piece of prose, which I don't have the creators here. Let's see. It's
Dr. Colm Keller and
Colm Kelleher and
George
George
Knapp.
Knapp.
Yeah.
George Knapp is a very well-known uh, newspaper person
Mhm.
in UFO circles.
Okay.
He's located out west, and he has done investigative journalism on, well, UFOs. It's not UFOs anymore. It's UAPs
Mhm.
for probably 30 or 40 years. So I
Okay.
mean, he is. That's why he is there, is because of the unexplained
Mhm.
phenomena aspect. The Calm Kelleher, I believe, was somebody more connected with what was going on at the ranch.
Mhm.
Is who he is. So those are the novel creatives. Zach Thompson wrote the comic adaptation. It's illustrated by Valeria Berzo, colored by Jason Wordy, and oh, too bad. It should have been lettered by somebody named Jason Wordy. That would have been, yeah, that perfect name for a letterer in comic
Yeah.
books. But no, it was colored by Jason Wordy and lettered by Joe Sabino with looks like 3, 4, 5, 6
There's a lot, yeah.
variant covers. Logo designed by Michelle Ankley, and overall designer was Grace Park.
Yep. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they can cover in the next 3 issues. So,
Yep.
let me briefly, since I talked about it a second ago, jump into Firefly. The Fall Guys is the first issue of a new miniseries. It's written by Sam Humphries, illustrated by Jordi Perez, colored by Francesco Segala, with color assists by Gloria Martinelli. This art team seems very familiar. Letter by Jim Campbell, several covers, 4, 5, 6, 8, yeah, maybe 7 or 8 covers.
Oh, I didn't mention it. Do you remember that the Last Sons had one of the 10-year variant covers?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
How they were all
Yep.
alike. Yeah, I remember us really digging those covers
Yep.
whenever
Oh, yeah.
a new number 1 would drop at the
Yep.
time. It was, yeah, okay, sorry.
And then designer is Madison Goyette on this one. So just quickly on this, this is uh, ever since Boom has gotten the Firefly property, much like the Buffy thing, property, they have picked a point in the Firefly story to sort of make their own stories from. And this is just sort of a continuation of that progression. So, where we were left with those characters at the end of the previous miniseries, with Jane dying and everything, we're sort of, you know, we're still there. You know, they didn't reset anything, so you know, uh, so we've not lost, any progression or anything like that, and I appreciate that. And so I really got into this series as far as the comic book series, the last story arc of the ongoing series, and then have just been picking up the mini series ever since. Um, so this has been, we've got Kaylee as the captain of the ship. Mal is still around, he gets involved in this story. This is basically another sort of heist story because it's the Firefly crew, why not? Or Serenity crew, why not? So it's more like them. Uh, the amount of oh, I tricked you. No, I tricked you. No, I tricked you. No, I tricked you kind of turnabout in this issue is hilarious. So the comedy or humor, I was like comedy, but the humor is still in this book, but the suspense is still there as well. The art in this by Jordan Perez is top notch. It's just a great looking book. Sam Humphries, this is his first time doing the Firefly characters, and does a really really good job of this. It sort of ends the mini or this issue ends with um the crew realizing, oh, they got tricked in being in a position to where they're going to take the blame for an assassination that will devastate basically the known universe. And so they're trying to figure out what to do in this moment right prior to the assassination. So it's a great cliffhanger for this issue. And like I said, I was going to be picking this miniseries up anyway. I'll continue to read it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you've not checked out Firefly, I do think sort of maybe backing up to the ongoing series that happened that ended like 2 years ago would probably be a great idea. But I think these miniseries, if you're willing to sort of do the mental jump as far as characters being sort of sorted into different roles, just as these characters' lives have kind of moved forward, I think you do fine just picking up this issue and kind of moving forward. So, but it's really, really enjoyable. So. And that being said, I will bring us, because I know you don't want to do it, I'll bring us to Once Upon a Time at the End of the World,
I,
number 9.
I was actually going to pick that, to be honest.
Oh, were you? Okay. I'll
Yeah.
let you keep going then.
To get it out of the way.
There you go. To get it out of the way.
Yes. This comes to us from Jason Aaron and illustrated by Leila Del Duca, colored by Tamara Bonvillain, and lettered by In World Design. Logo design is by Jared Fletcher, and the overall designer is Madison Goyette. This is issue 9. We see the continued separating of Mezzi and Maceo after the scene of them bumping uglies with gas masks on. So that you could have more bumping uglies and naked bodies in the story. Okay, that's all it did.
That's all it was there for.
That's all it did.
Well, I'm sure there was some sort of meta something or another about how they're being separated while they're still together, and
all of their internal dialogue wasn't enough to do that.
No, well, I mean, it was.
Nor was the really funky ending. It's like
so weird.
What's what they see, but then what we see, and
what
then
we see,
which is what? But is it? Yeah. So, Eden, their Eden has been just thoroughly polluted now from this emission from the rotten earth. So much so that the majority of the inhabitants have left. Those that have stayed are either, at the time that the story starts, they're either okay or they have succumbed to sickness from breathing the vapors. And the sickness causes them to become sociopathic at the least, homicidal at the extent. So they start hating each other, and then they just start killing indiscriminately. Or except for the one person who went to the library and ate themselves to death by eating the books. That was, sociopath, homicidal. I'm not sure what suicidal, but not quite.
I don't know what that one was. Yeah.
So all of this is going on while Maceo is trying to find a way to get rid of the vapors, because the gas that is coming from the pit that they use as their energy source is what. That's when the trouble started, is when that gas first started coming up. And so that is the problem, according to Maceo. Now, exposure to the gas also seemingly causes hallucinations. And so because of that, there is a or multiple boogeyman running around. And they are the one killing people on top of the people killing people. So it's like not necessarily a who done it, but a who can do it first kind of thing. And so Mezzi believes that, being a ranger, it is her duty to physically protect the people in their Eden. And so she forms a group of those still there to hunt for this boogeyman. And in both instances, the very, very moderate exposure to the gases are affecting Maceo and Mezzi, but not to this extreme extent, because it's not massive exposure. It's more like long-term micro exposure, let's say. And so they are, in their own minds, having issues with themselves. They're having issues with the other. They're spending more and more time doing what they believe needs to be done and less time apart. So all of those things has wedged between them and now is just forcing them farther and farther apart.
Yeah.
Um, physically, emotionally, not really psychologically because they're both breaking down about the
Yeah,
same
there's
amount
some
psychologically.
paranoia slipping in there as
For both,
well. Yeah,
it's
for
yeah,
both of them.
hallucination by the end of this issue.
Yeah,
Um, first slight with a huh? What was that? What did you say? When they didn't say anything.
yeah.
And then it's a massive visual hallucination that we wind up with at the end
Mhm.
of the issue. And it's like, oh, well, now I, whichever, Maceo or Mezzi,
Yeah,
see what is going on with you
yeah,
because of the visual hallucination when they see them.
yeah.
So, um, uh, everybody pretty much okay. When there was a problem, why did they all just not pick up and go?
I don't know.
Just go. Why do you have to stay on
Because
this particular plot?
I think Maceo's need to fix things, which was always his character, is to fix
Yes,
things.
yeah,
So I think he thought he could fix it to the point where they are now. It became obsession, and why Mezzi hung around, I think it became because honestly, I don't know why she stayed. That's the either the bond between her and Maceo is so tight that she was going to stay no matter what, and then it became like you said, she felt the need that she had to protect everybody, and sort of leaned back on her ranger ways, and is feeling that violence, was the or not even violence, but it was just she needed to kill whatever this entity was that was harming everyone. And so yeah, I think it is definitely, the stress and the exposure. And I think it just, it's one of those things, just it's a mental tax on these people. So yeah, they just eventually just broke down. So
and, I Mezzi, made my shit list
no.
when she was pining the fact that that other woman wasn't around anymore.
Right.
I'm like, "You duplicitous bitch, man." That is just
Well, but also, like, that one, she was smart enough to, like, "You know what?
oh,
I
yeah,
think
she
it's
left
time
early.
it was
Yeah, she
time
left,
I
like,
needed
2
just to move
issues
on."
ago.
Yeah.
It's like, This is not cool like it was supposed
She
to be. I'm
she's
out."
gonna get a memo at some point, like, "Oh, man, if you would've stayed around, it'd have been horrible. Like, you got out while the get was good."
But, yeah, Mezzi's pining, the widening gulf between her and Maceo,
Yeah,
and she is so distraught about that that she wishes somebody else was there to fill that
right.
gap, and I'm like, "Oh, you suck, man."
So so here's the
That's
thing. Now we and
get out
I've
of
talked
here.
to some other folks who've been reading this book in the interim between 8 and 9 here of our conversation. They have felt the same way you and I have felt. First arc was really, really good, got them super excited. And this middle arc has been kind of like, "Ah," and so everybody's sort of, and again, I say everybody, a handful of people I've talked to has been in this sort of within about 2 issues of this story arc has been in this holding pattern
Right, wait
for
and
the
see
third
it.
story
Yeah,
arc. They're
yeah.
like, okay, we feel
This
like the first arc made us think that something huge, we were going to really enjoy this book. And now we've spent the last 3 or 4 issues going, I don't know if I like this or not,
th
and so we're waiting for that third act. So we'll see.
there's a in my mind, there's a concept that I attribute to artists quite a bit, particularly when they do two-page spreads.
Hmm.
And I consider that what they're doing is, what would be a good term for it? Oh, uh, self-flagellation
No.
is what they're doing by doing a two-page spread. Um, I believe this middle story arc for Aaron has
Oh
been
no,
a writing self flagellation for him.
maybe.
Is what he has been doing. Oh yeah, do whatever you want to. Oh okay. Well
Oh
here, let me.
sure.
Yeah, it's like oh yeah. Wait, no, it's yeah. So
And it's one of those things like I
uh,
know he knows what the end is,
right, right.
and so does everybody who's looked at this book,
So he can
from
fill it
that point.
however he
They
wants
know, yeah,
because
they know
yeah,
where he's going with it. So it's
yeah,
not
it's like yeah. So
nobody's concerned. So if nobody was concerned, then why should I be concerned? But in the meantime, I'm still reading it going, what the frick am I reading?
they, he to me, he has completely gotten away from the cool concept of this uh, Planet Scout or whatever they called him. That was such a prevalent part of that first arc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now whatever they were doing is completely gone because essentially their world has changed.
Yeah.
They've settled together in this Eden and they've drawn all the people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that it is completely different from what you were doing with the
But
first
maybe
arc.
that's what it was supposed to be. Maybe
Maybe
that's what we
so.
needed. Yeah,
But
that's how
that
we
just makes
are
the
telling a
story like
story
this.
about the end
Yeah.
of the world. So
This is not the end of the world as REM had it envisioned.
no, it's
So
not. No, it's not.
I don't get that feeling at all. Okay.
Oh, you all right? All right,
Yes, I'm fine. Let's
let's
talk about something a little more enjoyable.
let's talk about Coda number 1.
Okay.
So this came out this week. This is the sequel to the previous 12-issue miniseries. This is written by Simon Spurrier, illustrated and colored by Mateus Bergara, color assist with Michael Doig, Doig,
Go
lettered by
again.
Jim Campbell. We're seeing a lot of work with Jim Campbell here
Mhm.
lately. Several covers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a Daniel Warren Johnson cover that I
Yes.
failed to pay attention to. Designer is Grace Park, and this is code is created by Simon Spurrier and Mateus Bergara. So now, like I said before, this is a sequel to a 12-issue miniseries. This is I forgot how many issues this is going to end up being.
I
It's
believe 6.
6. Okay, 6 issues. I want to go into this with the thought that you don't have to have read the first 12-issue miniseries. It's great if you did. I think it will give you context and stuff like that. But at the exact same time, Spurrier does a really good job of giving you a lot of information to new readers and to old readers who need a refresh of what the world is and who everybody is and things that you need to know. Does that in this first issue, and that's primarily what is going on in this issue. There is some progression of the story and what's going on, but at the same time it is like, hey, here's where we are, this is what the world is, these are what these people are. And so we kind of get into all of that, which is great. It is, in my mind, the thing that really drew me to the first series and to this is Bagara's art. It is very unique, and also providing the colors makes it sort of I feel like anytime an artist does both line work and coloring, there is the opportunity to really sort of blend the two in a way that two separate people find more difficult to do. Not impossible to do, but but there's a lot of times where I see there is that distinction between the two. There's a fine separation. And so when that artist does both, they know where to stop the line work, stop the inking, let the coloring come in and take over. And we get a lot of, so this is a visually stunning book, just first and foremost. It is an interesting um, setup issue because we are at a point where I always forget dude's first name, our only name, really. And the interesting thing about this is that he states in this our lead states that names are pretty much pointless. in this world. He gives somebody the name Gap, and does not you don't really know who that is. So I'm not certain that Gap is either he's a bard. So what we so let's see. Hold on, what's his name again? I had it here.
Um,
Hum
yeah,
is his name. He's a
yeah.
bard, so his name's Hum. Of course it is. So he is the one catching us up and telling us everything. And this is a world that once had magic and now it doesn't. And so there is
Well,
hopes that magic will
it
return. And
it
it
does have
is,
magic.
well, it does have magic. Yes.
It's just been,
It's very broken.
spoiled. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah,
So yeah, so he even gets, so there are elements of that throughout the issue. The well, and we'll get to this in a second. But this whole, like I said, this whole issue is him sort of setting up what's going on. You don't know who Gap is. I'm leaning on the fact that it could either be a child that he's talking to his child, or it could be just the reader in general. Because, like I said, he is a bard, so he's telling a story to somebody. He's always telling a story to somebody. So uh, we get sort of reintroduced to his wife, who is where he is a tall, thin man who is a bard and does not obviously, look like he could hurt anyone. His wife is
he's human also.
well, he's human, and his wife
Yeah.
is a sort of a giant, muscular.
Is she an elf?
He's an Urkin. It's sort of an elf. It's a very strong looking
Mhm, very
a buff elf.
yeah, very martial elf. Her name is
Yes,
Circa.
Circa, yeah. So she has sort of gone off into town. She's definitely a warrior.
She looks
And
like
so
the, Hulk elf.
yes, and so she is in need to fight, to protect. And so she goes into town and eventually finds herself in seeing that there are people who are being attacked by bandits, and so
Right,
she sort of gets into a what's funny is that she thinks she's going to go out there and defend them herself, and ends up the townsfolk that she is talking to end up going with her. And she's sort of like, there's just a ton of people who are there to defend these farmers, and she's like, I get to go first. She just wants to fight somebody.
right.
um
Gnomes.
no,
A small group of gnomes had
yeah,
because what they did is they signaled for help via flare gun, and
yeah.
whoever could help answered, and it was a group of gnomes that got there before her and Circa, and I believe that did that male companion that she
I
was
don't
with.
think he went with her.
He
I
went on
think
his own thing.
yeah, he went on
Okay.
his own because he had his wife, who was damaged
In the back.
in the basket.
she's she's part of the messed up magic
So
apparently.
I felt so bad for him because, like,
Oh man.
obviously he and Circa know each other, and so she was sort of camping with them for a bit, and he kind of like looked over at her at the campfire, was kind of like, hey, could me and you? And she's like, no. She's like, your wife is right there. And he's like, I know. She can't. I know. Yeah. He's like, don't. He said something like, don't judge me or something like that. He was just like, he was just, he sort of needed that physical touch that he
He
couldn't get
wanted
before.
some companionship
Yeah.
since his
And
wife was a burnt,
I
crispy
guess,
critter. Yeah.
it's just like, I
Who was
felt
still
bad for
able to
this.
do magic a little bit. She
Yeah.
still had some juice
I
there.
felt bad for him. So,
Yeah.
but then, so the one thing, the funny thing about Hum is back at their farm. He's sort of doing thing, and he realizes, um, his steed, his unicorn, has been stolen. I don't know how you would not notice that, because his unicorn is a ginormous creature. He's not one of these frail, last unicorn
No,
type ones. He's a beefy character or
it's an
horse.
evil unicorn if that's
Yeah,
possible.
I know, and it made me laugh. But anyway, so he runs into, while looking for his unicorn, runs into a group of folks that have obviously taken the unicorn and are using, according to Hum, are using this young man to be their answer to prophecy, the coming of magic, or the savior of magic, I think is what they end up calling him. um, and he is riding the unicorn, who is now not the uh, demon looking steed that he was. He even is on the cover of this first issue. He is a very regal looking creature and all this, uh, and Hum is very irritated by that, and eventually, screams and yells at the unicorn to the point where he sort of, snaps out of it, or whether
Right.
he needed to snap out of it or whatever. He sort of got him back into his sort of angry self. Um, but he still, bowed to the young man, to heed to whatever he wanted as well. So it was sort of an interesting thing. um it's just this whole issue again, just sort of setting up what all is going on, and sort of the conflict. It's everyone seems to be, uh Hum wants the world just to move forward. There are a lot of people who are using this young man who want things to go back to the way things were, and Hum's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Do we remember just a couple years ago how things were? They were bad. Why do you want that to come back? And so that's kind of his attitude. And then Circa's, still looking to sort of quench her, I don't want to call it bloodlust, but it's definitely, she's looking for some violence, to, that she just craves or whatever. So everybody's sort of in a different place than they were at the end of the first miniseries. But again, it's not a thing that you need to have known getting into this. I think it's a solid issue as far as setting up. You get a lot of different interactions with a lot of different creatures and the inhabitants of this world. Uh, Again, as like I said, I think the art is really strong. It's one of those things that draws me a little more to the overall aspect of the book than the writing. Although um, I do enjoy the writing and everything. I really enjoy the first miniseries, so I'm trying to not be overexcited about reading this miniseries. I want to let it sort of do its own thing. And so that's why I've been kind of bouncing about talking about it, because I'm a little more jazzed about it than I probably need to, going into a first issue. So we'll see how it plays out. But it is one of those books I've been pretty excited about it coming out. So I'm pretty stoked to see where we go with it. But I enjoyed it.
Go over to the private chat. There's a link for the Johnson exclusive variant there if you want to see it.
Oh no, I don't need to see that. But oh good, that's on their website. Yeah, that means that Chris isn't gonna buy it. So
It's only
it is
25
nice.
bucks. Not
I
bad.
know it's only $25. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've got, oh yeah, they've got all the other books too. Yeah, but that's a nice cover.
Um,
I guess that's Circa
it,
writing some sort of giant
yeah, isn't that the same
lobster
crab
creature.
thing that
Yeah.
she
Oh
jumped
yeah, yeah.
on?
That is the thing she jumped on. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, did, w- this issue seemed to be lighter than I remember most of
Hmm.
any of the individual issues of the first
Yeah.
series being.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
why I
first,
attributed it more of the setup issue than anything.
well,
Kind of
but
gets
still,
new and
I mean,
old
it
back
was,
into it.
he went lighter than I thought really anything from the first series. I
Hmm.
thought it was just a lot more serious throughout. Whereas this one, both he and Circa had amusing moments.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
even laugh out loud a couple of times, depending
Hmm.
on the mood you were in when you were reading it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it just seemed that this issue was a lot lighter than what anything before it had been.
Yeah.
and not as much of some funky language as we ran into in Coda.
Oh god.
That was
I
another
enjoy it, but that
example.
does take you out of the book a little
That
bit.
was another example of some sort of self-flagellation that he was doing. It's like, what, you know, just I don't know. Tell us that they speak interlac. Don't
Right,
write it
yeah.
so that we have to decipher it. Yeah. So it was, yeah, that kind of cooled me off about the series the first time around. This time didn't really run into it too much. Everybody
Yeah.
seemed to be speaking, at least in English I can understand.
Right, yeah.
Some of it was broken, but so yeah, big difference. Couple big differences there, I thought in
Okay.
this series compared to the previous one.
Alright, so where do you wanna go next?
Let's take a look at House of Slaughter 17.
Oh, sweet, yeah.
More about the story of Bait. And this comes to us, these must be near the back. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, all their credits are always toward the back for these books.
Uh,
It's always, like, the last page.
there's a nice ad for wind. And oh, here we go. Okay. This comes to us from James Tiny and the Fourth. Series development. It's written by Sam Johns and illustrated by Letizia Caranisi. Colored by Francesco Segala, lettered by Justin Birch of Ann World Design. Designed and developed by Werther Deladera with many covers, and
Mm,
designed by Grace Park. Created by James Tiny in the Fourth and Werther Deladera. The world,
yeah,
and he still has quite a bit of direction, probably because Bait is his creation. He
yeah.
probably created that character and then just maybe just some ideas and then just gave it to Sam Johns to flesh out and do with.
Mhm.
But so if I recall correctly, Bait has has planted himself in a household because there's a monster
Mhm.
living, existing, whatever in the household, or
Yeah,
it's based out of the household,
yeah.
and Bait is there to smoke it out.
Mhm.
And he is one of, it's like I think it's a family, but it's almost like a foster situation. I mean, they
Yeah,
have a
what it
lot of
seems like.
completely unphysically resembling children there. I mean, none of the children really look like anybody else, and they don't really look like any of the adults either. So it's
Mhm.
just a big mix of individuals here. But we do get an introduction, one, two, three, four, five, six, including a baby, and now Bait. And Bait is particularly smitten with one of the girls here. Her name is Nanette. Nanette, which, if I recall, is also the name of the wife of the guy that owns Mile High Comics.
Really?
Yeah, I believe her name is Nanette.
Okay.
It's not an overly common name, so it
Yeah,
sticks in my mind.
yeah.
What is his name? Mile High Comics.
Chuck?
Yes,
Yep.
Chuck something or other. Yeah, his wife's name, I believe, is Nanette. So Bates, familiar, we'll call it, yeah, is plays a very big part in the story. Probably a bigger part than really any of them that we've seen in any of the stories.
Oh, yeah.
Bait doesn't talk, so I guess that's why he plays a big part. It's almost like he is uh, Bates' voice, either his maybe like his subconscious,
Yeah.
not so much his conscious, but his subconscious. And keep in mind the character's name. So that is why he's here. So it's like, there's a lot of things to keep in mind and to consider when that's what you are and that's why you're in the
Mhm.
situation. And he knows that. We do see pretty early on an encounter, and we see why he is used the way he's used.
Oh, yeah.
He handles himself very, very well. Uh, so well, as a matter of fact, that I think he takes out at least 2, if not 4
Yeah, there's quite a
monsters.
few of them. Yeah,
Yeah, and these aren't, um, maybe they said in the previous issue what these were. They're not the duplicitypes, which have become, rather popular in Something Is Killing.
yeah.
It's a different kind. But he goes out
I mean, he
hunting
had no
because
fear at
no,
all.
no, absolutely. He attacked them just like anybody with 4 limbs would attack them,
Yeah,
only he
yeah,
has 2, and they're both in his lower body. I don't know, for those of you that may not have access to the book, Bait doesn't have functioning arms. You can't really tell where they're gone at, but
yeah,
they're gone, easily above the elbow. They might be gone all the way to the shoulder,
yeah,
but
yeah. But
he
it's not real clear for yeah,
no, he has no functioning arms is
yeah.
the point. So he dispatched these monsters with just his legs. Uh, some nasty weapons, but yeah.
Yes.
So he goes back, and we see he was out basically monster hunting all night. Went to bed, and almost as soon as he went to bed, they woke him up because it's
Yeah,
time to
that was
go about
hilarious.
the next day. Yeah, showing him eating breakfast with no hands was kind of
Yep,
amusing as well. He goes out and he's trying to do chores like everybody else,
yep.
but he really doesn't because he doesn't have any
Mhm.
arms. He doesn't have any hands. Some of the kids notice and try to make an issue about it. Others don't because they feel that, well, he is deserving of their pity, right?
Yeah,
Right? Because he's, be nice to him. All don't say those kind of things.
right,
That's
yeah.
some of the children there, whereas other children, of course, hyper are trying to make fun of him because of the situation.
Yeah, yep.
We get a flashback to when he was younger and had both of his arms. And we see why probably he is enamored by Nanette. It reminds him of his sister.
Yeah.
He has a um, what do you call it? A nightmare about her. But before the nightmare kicks in, it was kind of a normal dream. So
Yeah.
we get some character development for Bait. Um, cut back to the real world. Trying to fit into this group of people, these other kids here, trying to not be overly obvious that he's got a thing for Nanette, but some of the others are picking up on it.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think Nanette is yet, but and can I just go ahead and throw out now that if Nanette is not the monster, then they did a really good job of throwing me off.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because that's what I think too.
Oh, I mean, that is absolutely the way it feels. Not that they did or said anything, but just
Oh, I
other
mean,
things around
the
her.
last 2 or 3 panels of the book
Oh,
make you really think that,
well,
so
yeah, that's when the monster comes out, but that just could be because she knows something, not because it
maybe. Yeah, that's
necessarily has
true.
anything to do with her.
Yeah.
Could be that this girl she's with is the monster, and she's trying to tamp that down and keep
Oh,
that
that's a
from
good
happening
good point, yeah.
as
That's a
well.
real
So
good
it
point.
I, definitely, I would say it's going to be one of these 2 girls,
Okay.
uh, depending for different reasons,
Yeah,
according to this final scene. Yeah, that's the last scene. So,
yeah.
um, interesting. It's good seeing Bait in action. I mean, when he was first introduced, you were like, "Oh, come on, how is this?
Right, yeah.
What?"
This is
But
unfair.
he can more than take care of his own. There are members of the houses I'm sure that has never killed a monster, and we
Oh,
saw
yeah.
him just kill multiple here
Yeah,
in this one on this one assignment. He
yeah.
just gets so if it's like, well, if that's what he does, every assignment, dude's got several
Yeah, he's good,
notches
yeah.
on his gun belt there.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
No,
a
I
good
like this
solid
issue a
world
lot, yeah.
filling story. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When he took out those monsters, I was like, "Oh," I mean, I really like,
Okay.
"Okay,
There you
that's what
go.
we're doing. Sweet.
Uh,
I'm good. All on board for this."
yep.
So good stuff. Let's jump into. I'm gonna get grief for this. Let's jump into Mech Cadets number 2. No, I have not watched the show yet.
Okay, you beat me to it.
That's why I had to be quick about it.
Let's read before I. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
before I say anything, no, I have not watched the show.
I haven't watched it, but let's talk about this book.
Yeah. So Mech Cadets number 2. This is written by Greg Pak, illustrated by. Please help me there.
Miyazawa,
Yeah, Miyazawa.
Takeshi
Takeshi.
Miyazawa.
There you go, Miyazawa. Yeah. Colors by Ian Herring. Letters by Simon Bolin. Several covers there, and designer is Nancy Mojica. And this is created by Greg Pak and Tashiki Mizukawa. Thank you.
Takeshi Miyazawa.
I'll get it eventually. I promise you. I will work on it.
It's you get points just because you pronounced Greg Pak correctly.
Well, yeah, I've always done that.
Not Greg Pak. Oh, and this one's by Greg Pak, and
no, no. I keep the Southern in me as much as I can. So last issue, the team had to blast off into space, much like mechs do, to what they thought was just going to be an alien encounter. Ended up they found an old friend who needed some rescuing, who had already been rescued by an alien, which really threw Command all in a tizzy that he had touched an alien.
He's contaminated.
Yep. Good Lord.
It is the COVID alien.
It is the there is like so it is
exposed.
COVID alien. It is like this is some racist bullshit.
You're going to bring that back now?
Like, good Lord. So the and so anyway, so the general has to go up to space basically to bring his daughter back because she has disobeyed orders yet again, and she was taken out of command just last issue because of this kind of stuff, and she's already failing to follow orders. But her dad, the general, makes a good point that the command that she was given was to protect human life, and so that's what she did. It just happened to be interacting with aliens along the way, and so there was definitely some negativity toward the general because of that from command. So we get a lot of most of this issue is a bit of fighty, but with some of the aliens because we get more of those. But what we end up finding out, or what the kids end up deciphering by themselves, is sort of the reasoning for the mechs coming to Earth, the aliens, the Sharg who show up, sort of what their purposes are, sort of what their similarities are, and they feel that they have come basically from the same world, or same people are sending them to Earth. And so part of that is, okay, now command thinks that the mechs are bad news and that we need to get what do they call the Earth made one?
Hero Force 2.
Hero Force 2. So they need to get Hero Force 2 away from the other mechs as soon as possible so that they don't contaminate him or whatever.
Well, okay, hang on. They have to get Hero Force 2 back because they have to protect it, because now it is the only Terran-made robot.
Right, and they're afraid that the other mechs will eventually turn.
If the mechs are coming from the same source as the aliens, or at least alien equipment, then the bad guys have equipment that they're using against us. And if the same equipment is in the robos that we are using, what's to keep the robos from being turned against us?
Right. And
so
in this issue was also a good reminder that the robots are not are not just empty shells, they are sentient,
Right.
because there's a moment where they basically bury or burn, the parts from another robot that was killed. And so the kids, leave the robo's bodies and everything, and sort of witness this burial treatment, that these so they do, so they're not, I think we sort of skipped over that even last issue, that the robots are sentient.
Mhm.
This is not just a suit of armor that landed on the ground, on Earth, and they sort of
And
picked up sort of Robotech like,
you
this
see that
is.
a lot in the cartoon that you're avoiding watching.
I'm not
So
avoiding watching.
that comes up a lot in the cartoon,
I'm so far behind on my TV watching,
the
just
animation.
in general, yes. But I've been told by a number of people that I am
Okay.
missing out, and I 100% agree with you, and I have not watched it. I know I should. Um, so that's a lot of what this issue is. It's them figuring out sort of what this bond is that the Robos and the aliens have, and what we end up having at the end of the issue is a situation where the shard are attacking the kids once again, still up in space. And at this point the general has arrived and sort of comes in sort of Han Solo-esque, blasting lasers and taking out aliens. But at the same time he realizes, as he's swooping in to save his daughter, he is putting himself in moral danger. And so it's almost like he purposely put himself in that position, one, to free her, but two, to sacrifice himself to protect her. Now we're left with him in peril. He's not dead or anything like that. His
Right, we
ship
don't
hasn't
see it
exploded,
happen.
but we're at least left at the last page with two giant, Sarg aliens, you know, having having his ship in their grips. So we're kind of left with that. So I mean, it's a really action packed issue, much, not much different from the previous issue, but this is all taking place in space. We're getting more of the connections that are necessary to sort of build more tension. Um, and then we're also left with this big cliffhanger. What exactly is going to happen to the general? So it's a Pot can really throw in some weight, some emotion to what could just be an overall like sci-fi adventure book. I mean, there's definitely a lot going on here that's sort of pulling at all the emotions, whether it's excitement or danger or fear or whatever. So it's another pretty solid issue.
I think the big shark here that we see in the end is, they're related to that giant crustacean thing that the elven
From
girl
Coda,
was
yeah,
riding in Coda. Yeah, I think it's
you may be right because those are very similar designs.
like Coda is the future, and this is the
Oh
now of
no.
this same race. It's
No.
yeah, I think so. They
Wouldn't that be
settle
hilarious?
they settle on Earth and become those things. It's yeah.
It's all
Uh,
meant to be.
yeah, really. Yeah, it was interesting that there's a connection directly now between the Robo and at least the equipment that the Shark have.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's not something really. I would have thought that it was just going to be, you know, us another us against aliens
yeah,
story, but now it's like no, there's, now all of a sudden it's like, well, who is this controlling entity that is
yeah,
selling or sending things to both sides of this
yeah.
conflict, and why would you send it to both sides?
Yeah, and I do like the comparison of, of
The Nazis
using
and the
yeah,
Spanish.
using other people's wars to test out your own equipment to see what can defeat what enemy. And, I do like that sort of history lesson that we do get here,
Yeah,
that, it sort of
I
adds to the complexity of it all.
I didn't know that. I had
I didn't
never
either.
I
Yeah.
had never read or heard that the Nazis did that.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. Might have to do a little research just to see if that actually is true. I
Uh,
wouldn't feel that it wouldn't be, but
Yeah, no, I
that
think.
seems like it'd be a weird thing to throw in there
Well,
that
it's too
it's
easy
not
to
right.
see that. Oh, well, that didn't happen. Wonder why
Right,
they
yeah.
put that in the book. So yep.
So, but yeah, solid issue. Keep them coming.
Yeah, yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what, and more importantly, I suspect that somebody on Earth has something to do with this too.
It's a possibility.
I
Yeah.
don't know why I suspect that, but since we're getting a twisty and turny kind of story, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, well, that would be a major twisty turny that uh, General. Let's see, which one was she? General Felix was the
Yeah.
one down on the
On the
woman
ground.
on the
Yeah.
ground. Yeah, knows something at the very least, and that's why she didn't want Franklin coming back after having been exposed to the alien, because there's no way to know what that alien has told
Yeah.
Franklin,
Yeah.
which apparently is nothing because they cannot communicate their alien species.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, but she doesn't know that. She
No.
doesn't, and
She's
that's very
she is
telling to me.
such a whiny character that
Oh,
it's
she
just
is. Yeah,
I mean, I enjoy the character because of that. I mean, I
I believe
understand
there's
why
a
she's there,
I
but I
believe there's
do
a
think you're
statement
right.
being made there with that character being in charge of the military. I think there's, yeah, a personal belief system coming out there
Ah.
somehow, somewhere.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
So,
We'll see. Let's move on to the last book we have for tonight.
damn them all, a book that doesn't get as much press as it should.
No, it doesn't. Because I even forgot that this was coming out this week. And when I saw it, I was like, nobody's
I
mentioned a word about
I
this book.
I listen 5 days a week to podcasts,
Hmm.
6-7 hours a day, and I can't remember the last time I heard someone talk about Damn Them All on any of the shows I listen to. So, this is coming to us by Simon Spurrier, illustrated by Charlie Adler, colored by Sophia Dogson, with assists by Daniel Silva de Carvalho, lettered by Jim Campbell, logo designed by Tom Muller, publication design Tom Muller and Grace Park. Once again, multiple covers, one by Ariel Olivetti.
Yeah.
A female John Constantine. That's
Walks
I
into a bar.
that still to me is that is the elevator pitch for
Oh, yeah.
this
Yeah.
series. And even more if you want to get to the point, um, Simon Spurrier's John Constantine as a
Hmm.
female,
Yeah.
a much more direct connection. So we open up the story with some background on Cillian Byrne. He is a companion of Ellie's from a period earlier in her life, after she was uh, pretty much the magician
Yeah.
that she is now, the person that she is now, but just at an earlier stage of that
Mhm.
life. Um, Bookends, the beginning and the end of this story are a period where Ellie, that's our John Constantine esque character, our protagonist, and Cillian were hanging together. Um, yeah, I don't think they were doing anything more than just trying to live, and they were both doing it together. Is kind of my impression. Um,
Last issue would say differently.
what are they doing? Are they in
There
in
was
the
like she
flesh?
was yeah, like she like came on to him pretty hard there.
Well, but I mean, at this period of their life, they're not like specifically somewhere doing something.
Oh, no, 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 you're right.
They're
You're
just
right.
they're just
Yeah.
being. They're
I
just
got what you're saying, yeah.
Now, I mean, they do get into something together, but it's almost like a happenstance. I don't think they were there to take care of this issue that they encountered. I believe it was
Yeah, that I'm not sure about. Yeah,
two.
that does seem because he didn't seem prepared knowledge-wise
Mm-mm.
to get into and she points that out, so
Yeah. Now, we do see by the end of the story Cillian as he is now,
Mhm.
and of course the now is the story of Ellie. So
Yeah.
we have a flashback to the two of them before now, and then inside of the bookend flashback is Ellie and Cillian now.
Mhm.
Both of them being in control of one or more demons. I believe at this point, Ellie, she only uses the one, but I think she still has maybe another couple that she's in control of. Most of the ones that she's encountered, of course, she has freed because
Yeah.
that's what she is trying to do. Um, Cillian has, if either he has, and I'm not too clear on this. Well, no, maybe I am. No, no, I'm not. I take that back. I don't know if he has control of a demon or if he is empowered by angels.
Yeah, that was what I was a little confused at because did he take the demon to the roof to give to the angels?
That's what I thought.
Okay, that's what I thought too,
That was my reading of the situation,
which was such
and
a
and
weird thing. Well, it was so against what Ellie does. So
and this really is the first time we've seen angels in the story. I mean, the whole story's been about demons,
yeah,
and now we see that there is an opposing force, although they're not like actively opposing. They're more like a tool,
yeah,
not like a bad tool, but
yeah,
the original definition of a tool,
right,
much as the demons are being used as tools. So it's um, in between. Now we have the before Ellie and Cillian, and then in that book ending, well, not so much, but the story ends with Ellie and Cillian as they are now. Doesn't really start that way. It starts showing Cillian, and then it starts showing Ellie. So they're separate
mhm,
right now, uh, and we see, wow, just a very different um, world that Ellie is having to navigate than what she did in the first chapter of this story.
oh yeah,
Um, she is being asked for help by the person that was primarily the antagonist of the first chapter
right, yeah,
because now they have a detente. Um, and the detente is based on the fact that he said that he would be nice. It's
yeah,
like, oh, yeah, I'm going to trust that.
right, yeah,
But apparently she does.
yeah,
Okay. And here's another scene in a book of some nudity. We have some boob here, but we don't have sex like we do in Jason Aaron's book.
yeah,
Uh, so Simon Spurrier's flagellation is a little bit less than what Jason Aaron's is. If I characterize one as that, the other has to be. I have to be
exactly, yes,
consistent. So
gotta be fair,
there we go. But yeah, he's asking Ellie for help. Theo, is that his name? Theo Bolster? Or no, Theo's who they're looking for. I'm sorry. Um, actually, Theo Bolster, and he's dead. And actually, she's looking for his demon. Is what she's looking for, according to what is this dude's name? She said it here. I thought. Pardon me, guys. Fuckface. That's his name.
there you
No,
go.
I'm sorry. That's what Ellie
So
calls. It's written here. That's not me cursing. That's what she says here. Um, yeah. So, yeah, I guess she really doesn't use his his name anywhere here. Yeah, they're not on good terms, so she's not she's not digging the fact that he called her to begin with, whether he's asking for help or not.
right,
Um, but he is because someone that was in his control that had a demon, someone killed him and took the demon.
yeah,
And it's so basically it either is a rogue demon, which is very possible according to what he says, or there's another party now that has
mhm,
control of a demon. This dude, by the way that the story is written, has control of probably the majority of the demons that were released because that's what he did is he went about collecting them,
yeah, yeah,
whereas Ellie went about freeing them and she just freed just a couple, whereas dude would, with his demon, he would kill the possessor of
yeah,
another demon, a rival demon, and take control of that demon, and
yeah,
he just kept doing that and kept doing that until basically, it's my understanding he can pretty much do anything that he wants to. He just chooses to do what he does. He's not trying to kill everybody and take
Right.
everything over or
Yeah.
anything like that through his own choice, not because of anything else other than that's what he wants.
Hmm.
Um, Now he does ply Ellie's assistance with the return of her teacher's body,
Yeah.
which has been missing. I don't know if she really forgot about that or just hasn't gotten back around to that or whatever. But that was
Hmm.
something that happened early in the first chapter, is
Yeah.
that her teacher had been killed or something, but they weren't sure because they just knew he was not around anymore and
Yeah.
nobody knew where his body was or what had happened to him or anything, just that he wasn't. Well, this dude says that actually it looks like he dug him up. Um, Knew where he was buried, dug him up, and so he's telling Ellie that his payment for her assistance will be the return of this body because she may be able to um, resurrect him or take his powers
It sounded. I was a little confused because it said something about her reversing stuff.
with Alfie's flesh and blood. I could undo everything.
Right.
So
But what does she mean by undo everything?
I
That
would
was
think
I felt they were
undoing all the demons. And
okay.
and I,
All
I
right.
would think she could send them all back to hell and close up the gate so they can't come out.
Yeah. Possible,
Is
yeah.
is what I would assume. So she has been sent out to hunt the demon Belith, is the name, and in her she she encounters another character, that Dora, that was helping her, and now is actually Dora is living in Alfie's apartment, kind of on the down low. I think. I
Yeah.
think she's not supposed to, or she was hiding out there, or something like that. Well, Dora was very heavily involved via possession in the first chapter. Man, this just all sounds weird talking about it.
It's so
Um,
complex. So
it
much
is. It,
to it.
it it really is. And now with this particular part of the second chapter, it's all starting to wrap around into knots, whereas it was
Yeah.
nice,
Yep.
linear lines connecting everything. Now everything is being down the rabbit hole and pulled
Yeah.
tight, and it's like, wow.
Well,
Um,
and this is also where a miniseries gets extended. And so the miniseries is always written to be,
mhm.
you know,
Ve-
closed, but
right.
allowed to, there are threads that are allowed to be, dangling. And so this is that second arc that's like, okay, now what do we do? Do we build on what we've, established, or do we tie up those loose ends? So I feel like this is getting both of those treatments.
So she takes Dora to help her out because since her possession, she was um, her human body, the human part of the possession was adversely affected, and
Yeah.
it's not an effect that just wears off. It's altered, and it needs to be fixed because she needs Dora's help. But
Yeah.
Dora physically and psychologically can't help because she's still off from having
Mhm.
been possessed in the first chapter. So Ellie takes her to see a doctor who turns out that he is, and I don't necessarily understand the connection, but he is human, but he is like he changes, or he is the front man for
I think he's the front man. Yeah.
these fae called brownies, which is
Yeah.
a fae that most of us have heard about if we read fae, elven kind of magical stories. We've heard of brownies. So apparently they're really good at making homeopathic medicines and things like that, and they put together something to help Dora, and they Ellie takes issue with the dude, and I think if not brownies, something similar attack her, and she kills a couple of them. I think that's what the
Mhm.
green dudes are, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're necessarily brownies because they didn't look like. Plus, this name, uh,
Yeah.
Coblynau. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a spell or if that's the name of the creature or what that is. And I'm not going to say it out loud in case it is a spell.
No.
Um, so she gets help, but then the person that helped her kind of tries to double cross her, and she catches on, and she threatens him with the claw end of a hammer, actually, in his forehead. Finds a piece of something that she's looking for, called a yeah penin peningolin peningolin, which is something she encountered earlier in her life
Mhm.
when she was hanging with Cillian. So something about that encounter is still connected to Cillian, and by exposure to that same creature, she is able to track down Cillian now. So
Yeah.
he maintained some kind of relationship or knowledge, and then when he got his demon, he used one of those creatures or something. But there's some kind of current connection with she and him and a creature that they encountered earlier in their life. And she uses it to track him down, and tracks him down to his big high-rise apartment where he
Yeah.
is collecting demons and sacrificing them to angels, let's say.
Yeah.
And so apparently he is going to be the next target of uh, someone that has a demon that she needs to free, which
Yeah.
she's not going to capture the demon and turn it over to dude.
Oh,
She'll
no.
f- she'll free
Yeah.
it and let it go back home. So,
Yeah.
which I would think would probably piss him off, but he's got to know that that's what she does with him, because
Yeah.
that's what she's done with all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's very the linear story is really starting to convolute now, but not in a confusing way, just in a pay a little bit more attention way.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's why it's not getting the talk that it was when it first got, I think when the first issue came out, a lot of folks were
Mhm.
talking about it. And as it kind of progressed and got moved on to a new story arc and everything, I think less and less people were keeping up with it. And I'm wondering if it was because
Yeah.
the story just got too complex, which
It
I don't think it's too complex. I think there's a lot going on, but I
it's
don't think it's
it's not too
that
complex,
I don't think
for
there's enough going on to be that confusing.
everybody out there that will pick up this issue and ask, "Where do I start?" Well, the answer is at the beginning,
Yeah,
issue 1,
yeah.
and read it all the way through.
Work your way through.
That's usually the best place to start.
I've got people who are my son and friends of his that have never watched One Piece, that have watched the Netflix series, and are like, "All right, I'm gonna go back and start watching the anime." I'm like, "That's over 1,000 episodes. Good luck." And
That
they're like, "No, but I want to do it." And I'm like, "There you go. Good.
Yep, do it.
Start at the beginning."
Yep.
So don't be intimidated by just a few issues of a
Nope.
comic book.
Oh, yeah, no, don't even get me started. All of these constant, and I run across it on Reddit really more than
Oh,
anywhere else,
okay.
because that's where long form conversations happen nowadays, pretty much
Yeah.
is on Reddit. Can't really find it anywhere else. But someone, for some reason, um, gets interested in, you know, Batman,
Yeah.
and invariably they ask, "Where do I
It's a
start?"
good jumping on point.
And I'm of two minds. Okay, I fully understand what is involved when you tell somebody for Batman, Spider-Man, Iron
Yeah.
Man, Captain America, whatever, start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I will preface that with the fact that I am a diehard X fan.
Yeah.
I understand. But the story is sequential,
Yeah.
and it always has been. Now, yeah, you can start at a number one. Uh,
Mhm.
Hell knows that they are a dime a dozen nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but at some very quick point after the book restarts, it will use and refer to something that has pre-existed,
Yeah.
and you can tell that the concept, the character, the storyline has pre-existed. And so you're
Hmm.
going to ask the question, oh, where? Well, okay, the previous. Well, then you go and you will go back
You'll keep
until you
finding it.
go
Yeah.
to Amazing Fantasy 15,
Right. Exactly.
and that's just where you should have started to begin with. It would have been
Right.
much easier on you if you just, you know,
You don't have to
and
buy the issues, folks. You can buy trades. You can
oh,
buy
you
all kinds
monster
of.
omnibus
Oh
that,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Or or every now and then there will be an issue for some reason that truly summarizes
Yeah.
everything that happened before in one issue.
Yeah.
If you can find one of those, that would be a good place
Oh
to
yeah. Yeah.
start, because you get the main characters and what they
Hmm.
did and what happened. And as far as the story, you'll understand it. Now, if you want the minutia, you'll still have to go back and get the old stuff.
Yeah.
But I just every time I see that question, automatically in my head, the beginning.
Yeah.
Where's a
Exactly.
good place to start? The beginning.
Well, and yeah, and so when someone talks about this kind of story, Dan Mall, we're only 7 issues in.
Right.
It's
It,
super easy to
it's
catch up.
not a big ask.
Yeah.
It's not a big ask at all.
So
But
if you,
the funny thing, I don't know. I've never heard anybody watch a uh, Daniel, whatever his name is, James Bond movie,
oh yeah,
and ask, well, where do I start?
yeah,
Because I think they know that they go back to
yep,
the first James Bond movie and
yep,
start there.
yep,
You're not going to pick up Harry Potter 5 and read it and ask,
right,
where do I start?
exactly.
You're going to go to Harry Potter 1
But a
and
comic book, man, that throws people off.
what, yeah, it's like, well, I'm in the middle of this. Where do I start?
Yep,
At the beginning.
yep, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
and I understand again that is
it's
very,
daunting. Oh, for sure. If
it's
you get
going to
into,
be time consuming.
oh yeah,
And I think that is the issue with a lot of newer uh, comic book readers of a particular, shall we say, generation,
mhm.
that they want it now. And
Right,
it's like, Doug, there are 15,000 issues. Now is not possible. It
right,
doesn't work that
just
way.
doesn't happen.
So, okay, I'm
So
sorry.
it's One
Once
Piece,
again,
man. You just
I'm
gotta
I'm
start.
railing a lot today. Yeah, and the One Piece anime. Now, if that's what you're going to do, just watch the anime.
Yeah.
Don't read the manga and try to compare,
Oh no,
because
no,
there
no.
there are vast sections where, in order to fill out the anime, they went off in left field,
Oh yeah.
having nothing to do with the manga, which is very straightforward and linear.
Yep.
And
And
anybody
see,
that has,
that's where I'm starting. I'm started with the manga.
oh
My
man, it's
son has already started into the anime, and I'm like, nope,
yeah,
I'm gonna read
it's
the book. I'm a
the
reader. That's
the
my thing.
problem is, when the one caught up to where the other,
Oh yeah.
they
Yep.
still wanted to produce material, so they
Yep.
produced their own
Yep.
material, and it's like, well,
Hmm.
but that you're absolutely right. It has nothing to do with the manga at all.
Yep. Yep. There is that. There is that
The manga
divide.
is the source, and yeah, so
Yeah. It happens.
yep.
All right. Well, let's close things up. If you want to come by the website, it's boomaddiction.com or comicaddiction.net. Same website, different ways of getting there. You can email us at boomaddiction@gmail.com. Come by and check us out on Twitter or X or whatever at Boom Addiction. You can follow Ed at Teal Productions. You can follow me at Chris Parton. Come by the forums at justanotherfanboy.freeforums.net. Come over to our Facebook fan page, which is Fans of Boom Studios. And those are all the places that you can find us. Obviously, here on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube. And then if you are listening to us on the podcast, wherever you're catching us on podcast, there you go. So lots
If
of different.
if you're feeling industrious, you can even find both of us on Blue Sky.
You can find us on Blue Sky. Yes. Maybe
So
Hive. Are you on Hive?
I am not on
I
Hive.
feel like I have hives every time I get on there,
Uh,
because I'm like, "Oh, look, it's the same thing I read 2 days ago." Like, no one has posted anything new that I follow.
I don't know Hive. What is Hive?
Hive was like the other thing. It was like before Blue Sky. It was at the beginning of Blue Sky where everybody didn't want to go to Mastodon because they didn't know what server to pick. And then
Yeah,
Hive
that
sort of
was
showed up where it was a very Twitter-esque feel to it. And everybody's like, "Oh, this feels like Twitter. This is what I want." And it's, it doesn't have all the whatever that I don't like over on Twitter. Yeah, they just hadn't gotten over there yet. Don't
yeah, I
worry.
was gonna say because there's a lot like Blue Sky because there's nobody over there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just if you're interested, no, I'm not gonna. I have invites for Blue Sky still.
Yeah, I do too.
I haven't
I've got
publicly
3.
announced that or anything. I've got
So,
2. So making sure our circles have their invites and everything.
yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, those are all the ways you can get in touch with us. Do that and let us know think about the show, think about the books that we talked about and everything. If you picked up Last Sons of America, let us know what you think of that. But yeah, anything else before we head out?
I think I'm good.
Cool. Well, I appreciate everybody checking us out and listening and watching. And as always, Ed, thank you very much for joining me.
Yes, sir.
And we will catch all of you next week. Goodbye.
Ciao.
He did it. He did it. All right. All right, everybody in the chat. If there's anyone left in the chat, I think everybody's left at this point. I think even Doug said it was time for him to go to bed. But if you're still checking us out here in the chat, thank you very much for joining us. And we will catch all of you next week.
Bye,
Goodbye.
folks.